Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Are you up for a two-handed routine yourself and Kelly Cunningham take on the laughter lunge?
Oh yeah, I get me involved, but I'm really excited to show you my T-shirt I'm wearing today, and I'll be wearing it for the Champions Cup final next week. Shall I stand up so you can see it?
Ah, the real Dev.
The Leinster supporters sent it to me, so I've got it. I'm just giving it a trial run, ready for the final next week, and I wore it for the semi-final against Toulouse out in Mallorca. So very proud of it. Dev, the real Dev.
The great irony there is Dev on a blue shirt.
Fantastic gag. Oh, who's an actual stand-up comedian. Yeah, I'm not in the slightest bit surprised to see you wearing that, Mike. It's
it's my new pajama top.
We're never going to get through a chat with you without some reference to how great Devin Toner is. But he's not playing this weekend, obviously. The Pro 14, I don't know how engaged you are by the quarterfinals, as they're known. Matt Williams has written about it in the Irish Times this morning. He can't get his head around why they need to be called quarterfinals at all. Two quarterfinals and not four, obviously. The lack of interest as well has been written about across some of the newspapers this morning. Not very many people talking about the games themselves. Do you find it a bit weird we're at this stage and people aren't quite engaged by it?
Yeah, I suppose it is a bit strange when I'm across the water now, living in Newcastle. But I really haven't seen heard too much about it. Being the quarterfinals, you'd expect to hear a fair bit of noise. But I think especially the Connacht Ulster game there, that's a pretty exciting one. Then the Munster Treviso one, maybe not quite as exciting, but certainly that Connacht Ulster one is there's a lot riding on it. I think. Ulster will be favourites at home, but Connacht are going in with a lot of confidence, having won twice this season, beating Ulster at Ravenhill for the first time in 58 years. Connacht have beaten Ulster the last 3 times. Actually, they beat them last season at the Sports Ground, then obviously twice this season. So there's a lot of hurt there. I think Ulster are certainly a different team to where they were at the start of the season. When you look back now at that. The hammering away to Munster, that seems a distant memory. But Dan McFadden's come in. I think he's done a fantastic job. He talks about that fight for every inch mentality, and you're certainly starting to see that. Looking back to that game at the Aviva, where they probably should have won, and they were so close to winning. They really are showing some great form, and the only concern for me with Ulster is that they don't have the same kind of depth that not many teams do that Leinster would have. But a mixture of this season of Dan McFadden coming in doing a great job, but also the likes you have to have a bit of luck as well, and you've seen that with the likes of Marcel Coetzee being fit this season. I think he played 5 games in 2 years. His first 2 years at Ulster. This season he's played 21 games alone, so he's a massive player for them. But as I said, Ulster will certainly be hurting. They want to go out on a high. They want to, leave the guys who are leaving, go out on a massive high. The likes of Rory Best, Darren Cave, they're the kind of last remaining 2 of the old guard, with the likes of Chris Henry, Tommy Bowe, Andrew Trimble having all gone recently. So the lads have name-checked them in the week in terms of wanting to send those guys off with the last game at Ravenhill.
Yeah, there's that factor. There's a little bit of momentum maybe behind Ulster as well, particularly given the win last week. I wonder, from the Connacht point of view though, like you say, they've obviously beaten Ulster at Ravenhill, one of the few, I think maybe only team to have beaten Ulster at home this season. Is that a tangible factor for them? I'm sure it's something they'll be speaking about this week.
Well, yeah, reading Andy Friend's comments in the week, they seem very confident from their camp. Obviously, we've mentioned that winning up there for the first time in 58 years has taken that hoodoo off their back, so they now believe they can go up there and they can win. Connacht have had a revival this season, a bit similar to Ulster, having won the Pro 12 in 2016. Went off the boil with Kieran Keane. I think it's well known his man management skills of the players was very poor. The players weren't playing for him, and friends come in. The lads really respect him. They think he's a great coach, and you can really see how the guys are playing for him. Connacht played Munster last week, and I think they kept their powder dry. They didn't have a full strength team out, so they're ready to really empty the tank into this game at Ravenhill. And even reading comments there that normally Connacht would be on a mad Monday at this point in time. So it's great to have all 4 provinces playing for something at the end of the season.
Who's going to win that one?
I think Ulster will win it. I think just they're carrying a lot of hurt from losing the last 3 games to Connacht. I think Ulster really progressed under Dan McFarland, who's a great coach. I worked with him at Connacht for many years. He's a good motivator. He's very good technically. So that, with the form they're showing, nearly beating Leinster at the Aviva. They had a bad loss to Glasgow the week after, but maybe that's because they put so much into that Leinster game. But then, they backed up that Leinster game by beating Edinburgh, a Richard Cockerell Edinburgh side away at Murrayfield. So, for me, I think Ulster are going to have too much for Connacht, but, I certainly don't think it's going to be any kind of a pushover.
Yeah, that's tomorrow evening in Belfast, and then the other one tomorrow afternoon, Munster, Benetton. I mean, I mentioned at the very top about the lack of engagement. Munster are finding it hard to shift tickets for this one. They've had to do a kids go free deal for it, which is fair enough. They want to get bums on seats, obviously. The Munster fans obviously think that it's a foregone conclusion. Is it?
I think so, yeah. I think, when you look, Munster have got 47 points out of a possible 50 in their 10 home games this new year. So they're out and out favourites. It's great to see Treviso, the first Italian side to qualify for the knockout stages. And you saw that performance against Leinster at the RDS. They're very physical. They're very annoying to play against. They've got a very strong maul, strong set piece. I think 7 of the pack are Italian internationals, and then they've got some dangerous backs out wide. But for me, Munster at home is, Munster are formidable at home. It's going to be. I think it's going to be quite a big score. Also, Munster have beaten them twice this season already. They beat them away from home, which was close the last game, but they scored 6 tries against them at the start of the season. So for that game, Munster I'd say are out and out favourites. But there's a lot on the line for Munster as well. You got the likes of Jean Klein playing for possibly for a World Cup spot. He qualifies in September. Irish qualified in September. He'd missed the warm-up games, so he's up against it. But if there's injuries and he's performing well, he's got his name as a possible to go on that tour to Japan. And again, going back to there is such a lot to play for. Going back to that Connacht Ulster game, Jack Carty, the form he's shown, really playing for places on that tour to Japan.
How close is John Klein to getting on that plane right now?
Well, I think he's consistently been a great performer for Munster, and I think Tadhg Beirne coming in they really complement each other. While Jean Klein wouldn't be going for the poachers and as athletic and mobile in the line-out, he brings a different element of physicality, a big size difference, a tight head scrummaging lock, and I think they complement each other really, really well. And as I said, consistency. Week in, week out, he delivers. He plays well. He's very physical, and I'm sure he must be on the strength and depth we've got at the moment. The second row, we saw the likes of Quinn Roux stepping in when he wasn't even in the squad for the Six Nations. Tadhg Beirne, Alton Delan, and he just needs to keep playing well. And if he, as I said, he won't be able to play in those warm-up games because he won't be qualified. But if there is a few injuries, he could be on that plane to Japan.
You mentioned there that Treviso are very annoying to play against, which is definitely true. And I wonder in a very strange way, Mike, if there's something Munster can learn from that, and maybe they already have those lessons learned, because ultimately if they beat Treviso, they have to go to the RDS. And we saw what happened over Christmas when Munster got in Leinster's grill a little bit. The result went their way. Granted, it wasn't in the RDS. But I wonder, is there a little bit of a lesson they can take from that the week after next, if they get to that semi-final, they could go into full-out war again?
Oh, I've no doubt it would be a full-out war as well, because Munster really are hurting. They haven't won silverware, I think, for 7 years now. So they were very close last year at the RDS. It was a very close game at the RDS last year. So I'm sure each time they play Leinster in a knockout game, they must be learning lessons, and they'll certainly be carrying a lot of hurt into that game if they do make it to the RDS. But they had the disappointment of losing heavily to Saracens, and Munster for me have got a great defence, especially playing at home at Thomond Park. But I just think they need to score more tries. That's I think their players have even spoken about it, and I think someone's coming in next season to help them with their attack side. Yeah. But great for them to hopefully have Conor Murray back, who pulled out in the warm up. and Keith Earl's back as well. Because you saw what an impact Keith Earls had in that game against Edinburgh at Murrayfield. He's an absolute game changer.
Like you mentioned, Munster getting help on the attack side next year. Is there anybody on the radar, if you were in charge of Munster, who you'd be looking at as a potential attack coach?
Attack, lads. Attack wasn't really my thing, but was. But yeah, look, to be honest with you, I don't really know. But I think they all know they need to be scoring more tries, and the fact they got Keith Earls back as an attacking weapon this week is massive. Like I said that Edinburgh game, he was their key attacking threat, scoring those 2 tries in Murrayfield. So to have him back is a massive plus. Conor Murray back, that's a massive plus as well. So yeah, I'm not sure who they're looking at to come in, but they're on the right track.
Yeah, it seems like they can score plenty in the Pro 14, but when it comes to the Champions Cup, it's not as free flowing. A couple of other things just to get your thoughts on before we wrap, Mike. Fergus McFadden's 6-week ban, obviously confirmed yesterday. Deserved?
Yeah, well, if it's a headbutt, it's there's some sort of ban. I'm probably not the right man to be speaking, having had a ban for that myself many years ago, playing for Connacht against Leinster. But Ferg's a great fella. He's a great player, and unfortunately, he's had a frustrating time of late with injury. He is one of the most physical backs I've ever played with. One of the most mentally strong players I've played with as well. I think he'll be a big loss. While Leinster have massive strength and depth, for me to have him with his experience and the physicality he brings, not to have him for an option for the last few games is a massive loss. But yeah, I don't think Ferg will be complaining. He probably was expecting a ban, so it's just a shame for Ferg. After all their injuries he's had over the last few seasons, I think with that hamstring he was out for a long time, and maybe there's a bit of frustration there. He has been out, and yeah, it's tough on Ferg.
You chose a nice soft target for
in terms of what? Oh, Rocky Elsom, yeah. But yeah, see, that was a derby back in the day when I was playing for Connacht against Leinster, and a scrap under the post instigated by Leo. So. Yeah, no, it's funny. We've laughed about it plenty of times since, but yeah.
Of all the people on the pitch, Mike, to sort of launch yourself onto, I would suggest you could have chosen better targets.
Yeah, it was. I think I picked the wrong person as well, because I don't think he had anything to do with it. So yeah, I should have been going for Dev.
We all know that's not true. Newcastle, obviously 8 days out. I'm assuming that the city is getting itself prepared, or is it?
Oh no, it is big time. I mean, all the hoardings and all the promotions up, so it's great to see. As you know, Newcastle is an out and out mad football city. I remember playing at Newcastle Falcons about 10 years ago. Newcastle United got relegated and they were still filling the stadium 55,000 week in, week out. So it is a football mad city, but the interest for the final up in the northeast has been massive. We saw a few World Cup games there, and Newcastle did a fantastic job in hosting the rugby up there. So we've seen they can do it, and they can do a really good job of it. England are playing Italy there for a World Cup warm-up game. So it's not new having rugby up there. But, what a fantastic city. I think people who haven't been there, are going to have a very exciting weekend. Before I signed for Newcastle from Connacht, I'd never been there before. I had a bit of a view in my head that it wasn't the nicest of places, but I couldn't have been further from the truth. You've got beautiful Northumberland countryside, Tynemouth Beach, lovely sandy beaches, and then the city's fantastic. You've obviously heard it's a pretty good night out. Plenty of places to go, plenty of things to do, great architecture in the city. So, people are going to have a great time over there. It really is a party city. Whether you're going out the weekend or midweek, I think it's the most popular place to go to university in the UK, or one of them anyway, because it certainly is a fantastic night out.
Okay, cool. We might come back to you next week to look into that game in a bit more detail and get your best recommendations as well for all of our viewers as to where to go in Newcastle. Mike, for a minute, thanks a million.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.